My name is Lila, and I'm 28 years old. I've always been a strong and independent person, but things changed when I married Daniel. Everything seemed perfect at first, but there was one problem I couldn't ignore: his mother, Barbara. Barbara and I never got along. She was always nice to my face, but behind my back, she treated me like I didn't belong in the family. Her daughter, Jenny, was the apple of her eye. Jenny could do no wrong. It was hard not to feel left out, especially during family events. One day, Barbara told me she was planning a huge birthday party for Jenny. She said it would be a big celebration with lots of guests and fancy decorations. Jenny always got what she wanted, and Barbara was happy to provide. I thought nothing of it until I realized that Barbara had taken my savings to pay for Jenny's birthday party. The money I had saved was supposed to be used for our rent. It was a significant amount, and I had worked hard to earn it. I kept it in a separate account, away from Daniel's finances, just to have some control over my own money. Barbara had no right to take it. When I found out, I felt betrayed. This money wasn't just for rent. It was a cushion I had set aside for emergencies. Now it was gone. Barbara had spent it all on her daughter's party, without even asking me. I was furious, but I couldn't say anything to Daniel. He was too close to his family, and I didn't want to start a fight over this. But something inside me snapped. I had been silent for too long, letting Barbara take advantage of me. I decided I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I didn't tell Daniel that I was upset. Instead, I went about my day pretending everything was fine, but I had a plan, one that would teach them all a lesson. Later that week, I paid the rent with the last of my savings. But here's the twist: I secretly used the money Barbara had taken from me. It was my money, after all, and they had no idea I had done it. I planned to let them think I was just handling things responsibly, but instead, I had set myself up for revenge. When the next month came around, I didn't pay the rent. I stopped paying it altogether. If Barbara thought she could take my money, she would soon find out what it felt like when things started falling apart. But I wasn't done yet. I moved out of the apartment and back to my parents' house, where I would be safe and sound. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. Barbara and Jenny eventually found out what I had done. I was ready for the storm that followed, determined to make them understand what it felt like to lose control. Moving back to my parents' house felt strange at first. It wasn't where I imagined I'd be at 28, especially after spending so much time building a life with Daniel. But the moment I left our apartment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't going to let Barbara or Jenny push me around anymore. My parents were kind and supportive, though they didn't fully understand why I had left Daniel. They knew things had been rocky between us, but I chose to keep the full story to myself. I wanted to focus on rebuilding my life and reclaiming my independence. Days passed, and I waited for Daniel to call. I knew he would be angry. He had always been close to his family, and I had never stood up to them like this before. I wasn't sure how he would react, but I knew this was something I had to do for myself. Then it happened. One evening, Daniel called. I answered, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. At first, he sounded calm, which only made me more nervous. "Lila, where are you?" he asked. "I'm at my parents' house," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed heavily. "Why did you leave? What's going on?" I could hear the frustration in his voice. He didn't understand. Of course, he didn't. Barbara had always taken care of everything, and I had always gone along with it. But now, I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. "Daniel," I began, "I can't live like this anymore. Your mom took my money for Jenny's party without even asking me. That money was supposed to be for our rent. I worked hard for it, and when I found out, I felt completely betrayed." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could tell Daniel was processing what I had just said, but I wasn't sure if he fully understood. He had always been the kind of person who tried to please his family, even if it meant letting them take advantage of him. "I know you're upset, Lila," he finally said, his voice softening, "but you could have told me. We could have worked through this together." "I shouldn't have to tell you when your mom is taking advantage of me," I snapped, the frustration boiling over. "I'm tired of always being the one who sacrifices. I worked hard for that money, and I'm not just going to sit back and let them take it from me anymore. Daniel was silent for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, but he didn't say a word. It felt like he didn't know how to respond. Maybe he was thinking about his mom, or maybe he was angry that I had acted without consulting him. Finally, he spoke. I'm coming over. We need to talk. I wasn't sure if that was a good idea, but I agreed anyway. I had to face the consequences of my actions. It wasn't going to be easy, but I had made my choice, and there was no turning back now. When Daniel arrived at my parents' house, I could tell he was angry. His face was flushed, and his eyes burned with frustration. But there was something else in his expression, something deeper. Perhaps he was hurt, or maybe he was starting to realize how much I had been holding back all these years. Lila, you didn't have to go this far, he said, his voice tight. I understand that you're upset, but leaving the house like this? It's not the solution. I stood my ground, refusing to back down. I didn't ask for this, Daniel. Your mom took my money without even asking. She didn't care about how hard I worked for it. She just gave it to Jenny and you didn't say a word about it. I'm not going to let her control me anymore, and I'm not going to keep sacrificing while everyone else gets to enjoy themselves. Daniel's face softened momentarily, but then his eyes flared with anger again. So what? You're just going to leave me? Leave everything we've built together over this? You're throwing it all away. I shook my head firmly. I'm not throwing anything away, Daniel. I'm taking control of my life. I can't keep living like this, always being pushed around, always sacrificing for others. I deserve better. Daniel stared at me, his eyes conflicted. He wanted to defend his family, but I could see he was beginning to understand my perspective. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect. It was about being treated as an equal in our relationship. Maybe I've been blind, he said quietly. Maybe I've been so focused on keeping everyone happy that I've forgotten about what you need. I don't know what to say, Lila. I don't want to lose you. A wave of emotion hit me. I had been waiting for this moment, hoping that Daniel would finally see what I had been going through. But now that it was happening, I wasn't sure what to do. I had already made my decision. I need space, Daniel, I said softly. I need to figure out what I want, what I need. And right now, I can't do that with everything that's been going on. The days after Daniel's visit were tense. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I had made my choice, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Daniel, make me doubt it. Barbara and Jenny hadn't called yet, but I knew it was only a matter of time. They wouldn't just forget about the money. I expected them to dismiss my actions as overreacting or try to manipulate me into thinking it wasn't a big deal. But I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I spent my days at my parents' house, focusing on my work and reflecting on everything that had happened. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I wanted to call Daniel to ask if we could fix things. But I knew I couldn't, not until I had fully reclaimed control of my life. A week later, the call finally came. It was Barbara. Her voice was shaky, as if she had been crying or was trying to sound more emotional than she truly felt. Lila, she began, her voice trembling. We need to talk. Your father called me, and I know what you've done. I can't believe you'd leave Daniel over something so small. It's just money. Anger flared within me. I had expected this, but hearing it from her still felt like a slap in the face. It's not just about the money, Barbara, I said, my voice steady but cold. It's about respect. It's about you taking what's mine without asking. It's about you thinking you can control my life. I'm done with it. Barbara was silent for a long time. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. I wasn't sure if she was trying to think of a response or if she was simply stunned by my change in attitude. You're being unreasonable, she finally said. We're family, Lila. You can't just walk away from us. I didn't walk away from family, I replied firmly. I walked away from being used. There's a difference. Another long silence followed before Barbara spoke again, this time in a softer tone. What do you want from us, Lila? I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I could finally set boundaries and make it clear that I was done being taken advantage of. I don't want anything from you, I said firmly. I've already taken care of myself. I'm financially stable, and I don't need your charity or control anymore. I'll be fine on my own. Barbara was quiet again, and I could hear her struggling to hold back her emotions. It was clear she didn't know how to handle my independence, my refusal to bend to her will. I don't know what to say, she muttered finally. There's nothing more to say, I replied firmly. I've made my decision. I'm not coming back, and I'm not going to play these games anymore. And with that, I ended the conversation. It was one of the hardest things I had ever done, but it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had stood up for myself, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. Days turned into weeks, and the situation seemed to settle down. But I knew Barbara and Jenny hadn't given up. They still expected me to bend to their will, to come crawling back like I had done in the past. This time, however, I wasn't going to give in. I had been preparing for this moment for a long time. While they believed I was dependent on them, while they thought I had no money left, I had been quietly building my own wealth. I had invested in stocks, set aside savings, and created a future that was entirely mine. One afternoon, I received a text from Daniel. It was brief and to the point. Can we talk? I wasn't sure what he wanted, but I agreed to meet him at a cafe. When I arrived, he was already sitting at a table, looking tired and defeated. His face softened when he saw me, but the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable. Lila, he began, his voice heavy with regret, I've been thinking about everything, and I want to apologize. I didn't realize how much I was letting my family control things. I should have listened to you. I should have stood up for you. His words stirred a mix of emotions within me. Part of me wanted to forgive him, but another part of me knew this wasn't enough. I had given him so many chances before, and each time, he let me down. Daniel, I said, keeping my voice steady, I appreciate your apology, but I've made up my mind. I've been taking care of myself, and I'm not going back to the way things were. His face fell, and I could see the pain in his eyes. Yet I knew I couldn't back down. Not now, not after everything I had gone through to reclaim my independence. I've already moved on, I continued. I'm starting a new chapter in my life, and I'm doing it on my own terms. I can't go back to the way things were. I'm sorry, but this is it. Daniel looked at me for a long time, as if searching for the right words to say. But in the end, he simply nodded. I understand, he said quietly. I just hope you find happiness, Lila. After that meeting, I never looked back. I moved into a new apartment, one that was entirely my own. I wasn't living in anyone else's shadow anymore. For the first time in years, I was free to follow my dreams, make my own choices, and truly take control of my life. As for Barbara and Jenny, they eventually learned that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. They tried to pressure me a few times, but I stood firm. I had learned that my happiness and independence were worth far more than anything they could offer me. In the end, I turned everything around. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding my life, and what I built for myself was more fulfilling than anything I could have ever imagined.